Hello, my name is Connor Quinlan, and in this review I'm going to be talking about the new Nikon 70-200mm f-stop 2.8 VR2 lens. Now, the one I have right here is the older version of the Nikon 70-200mm, and basically in this review I'm going to be comparing the two lenses and talking about the new features that the new Nikon 70-200mm has to offer over this older one. In the review, I'm also going to have a conclusion as to which lens I would get or what I would do. First thing I want to go over about the new lens is that it's completely redesigned, a completely different outer shell and completely different optical design. And of course the optical design is the prime difference between these two lenses. The new optical design, which has 7 ED pieces of glass, is supposed to offer very sharp corners on FX cameras. A complaint that many people had with the older Nikon 70-200mm was that it wasn't very sharp, especially at larger f-stops on FX cameras in the very corners of the picture. Now I own a film camera and I use the Nikon 70-200mm every now and then on it at pretty large f-stops too, and I don't have that much of a problem with the corners on those images. The older Nikon 70-200mm is already very sharp and I'm very happy with it. But the improvement to FX cameras with the newer 70-200mm is definitely welcome. Another thing that it has to offer that many new professional lenses are getting now is a nano crystal coating. And what this basically does is it's going to reduce flare and ghosting in an image. Now already the older Nikon 70-200mm, I have never had much of a problem with flaring and ghosting unless I point it pretty much directly into the sun. But other than that, I've been very happy with the control of flaring and ghosting with the older version of the Nikon 70-200mm, and don't know if the nano crystal coating won't make all that much difference. But if it does, that's definitely also a nice improvement to have. In my opinion, one of the greatest and possibly the greatest upgrade to the new Nikon 70-200mm is the placement of VR2. That's the one found in the older Nikon 18-200mm and the new Nikon 18-200mm as well. The older 70-200mm lens has the older version of the VR, which basically take images of pictures 2 to 3 stops slower than you normally would be able to. But however, the new Nikon 70-200mm with the VR2 will be able to do that at 3 to 4 stops. That's almost twice as slow, and it'll be able to keep those images sharp even with slower shutter speeds. I myself, after using the VR system with the 70-200mm for a couple of years, have been not really all that impressed with the VR system, and it does help a little bit, but not that much. However, the one in the Nikon 18-200mm I've always been very impressed with, and I'm very glad to see that Nikon decided to put that in their new 70-200mm lens, and that should definitely make a great improvement to the lens, especially at slower shutter speeds and in low light conditions. Other than that, a couple changes are in the body. Of course, the body looks completely different than before. It's actually a little bit shorter than this lens right here. However, it is heavier as well. It also has a new button added here where the MA and manual focus mode is. They also added a AM focus mode, which allows for aperture priority over manual focusing. One problem with the new Nikon 70-200mm that I've noticed is that they've actually gotten rid of the AF stop buttons on the sides. There are 3 AF stop buttons, one here, one at the bottom, and one here, which when you press like this, stop the AF from focusing, even when you push the shutter down halfway. I've always found that very useful and very nice to have, but sadly they do not offer that anymore on the new 70-200mm. But to be honest, it's not that big of a deal. Basically, in conclusion, I am in all very happy with my older version of the Nikon 70-200mm lens. It is extremely sharp, even on FX cameras. Even if it is a little soft in the corners, I've had no problems with it on my 35mm film camera. And for most people, it should be a plenty sharp enough lens. Pros used this lens for 5 years and never really had a complaint, and is still a great lens. My personal opinion is, if you already own the older Nikon 70-200mm, I would suggest just keeping it and not selling it to get the newer version for a little extra sharpness in VR2, because this lens is already pretty phenomenal. However, if you do not own the lens, I would probably buy the newer version of the lens, because the VR2 is going to be phenomenal for lower shutter speeds, and the sharpness also is a pretty nice improvement for those of you who use FX cameras often. And this has been a review of the new Nikon 70-200mm VR lens.